You know what's really awesome about Zoom? You can wear whatever you want on the bottom. Connor was getting ready to meet a friend that he'd only met over Zoom because they do the Zoom Kids thing from Josh's dad's church. And he's like, I might get to meet Eli this week. And then he goes, I wonder if he wears pants.
Hey, welcome to the Gathering 208 podcast. This is episode 14, and it's our first episode of the Gathering 208 book club. And we're going to be talking about a book that none of us have read yet,
not all the way.
But not all the way. We've covered kind of the introduction and the foreword because we want to read it with all of you. And so today, to talk about kind of introducing this book with me, I have got Julie, who is hanging out with us over Zoom, and then my wife is here as well, and bunch of other people on vacation and doing stuff. We've got a couple more people be like Lonnie's helping somebody move.
He's so really at the bottom of the barrel with us too. What do you say?
I know, right? He's like, I don't want to be on a podcast with Erica.
These were the only two people available apparently in all of my life. So anyways, we are getting a couple technical things moved around here so that I can see everything.
Somebody's messing with things.
Well, it's like when you're on this side of the camera, we don't have a producer anymore. So we're doing it all like right here. No, it's good. So yeah, anyways, so Erica was talking right when the podcast started, you were talking about the beauties of doing Zoom calls.
Yeah.
And we have our kids have been doing these kids ministry Zoom calls through the church that my dad is lead pastor at. And he was like wondering if his friend that he's only met over Zoom, he was really worried that he didn't wear pants because they were going to like meet in person. It's like, I wonder if he wears pants.
I mean, when Connor's not on the Zoom call, he's never wearing a shirt. So that's
true.
A valid concern.
That is the only way we've been able to get Connor to put on shirts since school was ended was because of Zoom calls.
Yeah, Zoom call coming up. Put a shirt on, buddy.
Or if Julie comes over.
And even then it's 50-50.
Yep.
You never know if Connor's going to wear a shirt. Anyways, so I don't know if we're going to go the full hour today because this is kind of an introductory time because we are going to start talking about this book right here. Now, this book is called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by a pastor named John Mark Comer, who's a pastor out of Portland and was pastor of one of the fastest growing churches in the U.S. I think it talks about in the introduction how they went through a 7-year stint where they grew by 1,000 people every year, which is absolutely nuts. And so this talks about his journey of eliminating hurry. I mean, so we haven't read the book yet, and we want to read it with everybody here. And so what I'm thinking will happen is today we're just going to kind of talk about introduction and some of our thoughts about this idea of hurry in our own lives. And each time we'll read a part or about 50 pages. So this will take us about 4 months to get through. And the book is I think it's right about 220 pages or so without the some of the notes at the end. But so anyways, let's talk about hurry a little bit in our own life. Julie, you were actually telling me that you felt a little guilty jumping on the podcast today.
Yeah, I was like, I'm already convicted because I got off some work. I was working from home today. I got off a couple of work calls and logged off my email at 6:15. And I was like, I better read this book really quickly. And I honestly hadn't even glanced at the title after you dropped it off earlier today when it was
Bright orange book. Good to go.
Yeah. I was like, cool, it's red. And so I started reading it and I was like, oh, ouch. Because I was thinking about like when I picked it up, I was like, I got to read this fast because apparently Erica read the prologue and I haven't yet either. And we all know I can ramble about anything. I'll make it up as I go. But I was like, I got to read it quick and make dinner, get some food and hop on this call. And then I got to call work before we go live at 7 and do a check-in. And I was reading about how, about slowing down and what the book's about. And I'm like, oh, wow, that kind of hurts already.
It's one of those things where we've been talking a lot in my own like personal conversations and different coaching relationships. And as society, we've been talking about hurry, every time we talk about anything, and then it gets related to this whole pandemic and working from home and trying to figure out life and the new normal. Hurry and stress and the go is one of the things that, apart from personal health and wellness, I think it's one of the major themes that gets brought up over and over again. There's always been this felt need to slow things down a bit. And all of a sudden people have gotten to experience slowing things down a bit for the first time. For a lot of people, it's probably the first time in their life, first time since they started doing school sports. I mean, we're trained, we are brought up to kind of live this hurried life. Sport, let's say extracurriculars, because
Okay.
we were in theater and music and band, and you did marching band. So you had to go to sports.
I was present.
You were present and in the stands and playing an instrument. But from really middle school on, there is just this constant busyness. And we've instilled that into our DNA and our identity as a culture. And there is something that John Mark Comer said in his book about, that need to be first one in and last one out. And I remember when I was at Mitchell Wesleyan, and I remember telling Erica that I don't feel like I should go home until someone has pointed out how many hours I've worked. Like, until someone goes, man, Josh, you've been here a long time, you should probably take off. Then it's like, yes, it's okay, I can go home now. You're like, I've done my part. I've been validated. I have been busy enough for people to notice. So I'm kind of curious for you guys, what has been your relationship with busyness in your life?
I've already rambled, so I'm going to let Erica jump.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting juxtaposition to you, because
we are wired differently.
Unlike Joshua, I am not a workaholic. I put in my hours, I'm there 8 to 6, 8 to 5, whatever. I'm done. I'm out of there. And that's where it ends. I try not to think about work outside of work. That's unlike the two of you, because you guys are in charge of other people, and that's important. But then when it comes to ministry, that's an entirely different thing. That's the rest of the time. Ministry and momming and all of that fun stuff is where the hustle comes in for me, and just that constant pressure to make sure you're doing enough or being enough for your children and your spouse and your congregation. And that's where the main part of the hurry comes in for me. Like, work just gets in the way of what I actually should be focusing on, which is ministry and my family.
Yeah. And I think that there is that tension where I can get working and then forget that I have a family, which sounds horrible, because I love my family, I love my wife, I love my kids. But I can definitely get into that hyper focus kind of situation where I forget that the rest of the world is there, and it's just, this is what needs to be done. This is going to consume all of my thinking and all of my attention, all of my energy, and everything else ceases to exist in a very real way from my perception. And so I would remember working late at night and getting a phone call from Erica going, hey, are you gonna come home tonight, or what's your plan?
It's like, the kids are in bed. Come on.
Kids are in bed. I've been in bed. I woke up because I needed to go to the bathroom, and you're not home yet. And that's something like we've had to fight through over the last, I mean, really last 2 years, we've been working hard on that for me and my life in particular. But, being more intentional about time and family and keeping a balance there. So yeah, I have a feeling that this book is going to be a little painful.
Good.
Painful for me to read. If those who are watching and hanging out with us would love to hear some of your experience with being busy, some of how you've encountered that. Have you felt like busyness is needed in your life? Have you felt like maybe even business is one of those things that is kind of like a badge of honor, being able to be busy, or have you escaped all of that? Maybe you're on the other end of the spectrum and like, I'm never busy. I don't know what all the hubbub is. And Julie, you stay pretty busy. We've
I think I'm at like a really weird part just moving here in January. And when I was interviewed at the beginning of April too, just talked about like how I was trying to be intentional with my time. But I unfortunately would probably categorize myself as someone who wears busyness as a badge of honor. And so I'm in this weird thing though, where I feel like I can check off my list, like, oh, I'm not busy all the time. Like I'm home right now. So that's not being busy, or like, being forced to quarantine and, not see people or not even knowing people enough to do things. But I definitely look at work. Like I was saying, I worked from home. I've been working from home this week. And I think I texted you yesterday, Erica, just about what I was praying about, because I was not enjoying working from home. The clinic that I work at is extremely busy right now with COVID patients. And I felt so worthless being at home. And I was working on like our schedule and some behind the scenes things. And I shrug it off right now because it's like, I wasn't busy. I wasn't running outside getting 24,000 steps like I did last Monday when I worked, or, and it frustrated me. And I also felt like there was this part of me that thought like, people don't think I'm working hard right now or that I'm doing anything. And I was kind of sensing that that's where I was getting like my validation from like people and how busy or how hard they thought I was working. And I was kind of slapped in the face with that at like 10 in the morning, of like, just kind of got this sense like that's not what this is about, and today I'm working from home. Here's my tasks. This is what I'm going to do. But like trying to make sure that I'm not focusing on my worth being from how busy I am or how people perceive how busy I am too. So.
Yeah. And there's this balance between like getting stuff done and being productive and pushing ourselves and like go out and, kind of go out and get it and make things happen. And not letting yourself become so consumed by those things that you lose track of the things that are really important in your life. And that was one of the things so I think we were all able to get through the epilogue, or not, the prologue and the introduction.
Yeah. There's a little forward.
Or a little forward in a prologue. And there was a line in here that really kind of hit home for me. He says, he's talking about how much of a hurry he was in, right? And he was preaching six times on a Sunday, and that all these multiple venues, and he's pastoring this big mega church, and he's kind of this introverted, artistic, creative person, and all of a sudden he's trying to like CEO and HR and be all these things, this enterprise leadership, leader of leaders. He's like, this is not how I'm wired, but I'm kind of forced to do it because the church has grown so much, and that's the dream, right? Like as a pastor, you're like, yeah, like give me the 7,000 person church. That's what I'm supposed to have, right? And that's who I'm supposed to be. And he goes, oh, and it's just always in a hurry. And he says, why am I in such a rush and he's thinking about being 40, because he was 30 at the time, thinking about being 40, 50, 60 years old. It was, why am I in such a rush to become someone I don't even like? And I think that is one of the main differences between living a life that is where we're intentional, but we're working hard, right? Like eliminating hurry isn't a matter of not working hard and not putting in a lot of effort, but it is thinking about, okay, who am I supposed to be? Like, who do I want to become? What's the person that I want to be in 50, 60 years? And is what I'm doing, am I even going to like that person on the trajectory I'm at? And I think for a lot of us, if we were to think about that really honestly, the answer would be no, in a lot of ways, where we might be sacrificing important relationships. We might be sacrificing even work goals for what we're truly wired for. And Julie, I'm thinking about some of the conversations you and I have had about like your own work goals and your own career goals, and the direction that you've wanted to chart for yourself means undertaking some more busyness. Right. So I'm going to be, I'll love to hear how this book's going to interplay with some of that. Because you're actually jumping into a new master's program.
Yeah. Like, here's a pandemic. Let's start a master's program.
Yeah. 4 weeks that begins. So yeah,
but we're proud of you.
Yes, incredibly proud. But it is one of the, like, and you've already talked about it in some of our conversations about realizing that taking on a master's program all of a sudden means sacrificing in other areas.
Yeah, no, that this epilogue has been convicting, but I do, when he talks about, I guess I can relate in some instances, but then not in others, where he's talking about being in a rush to be somebody that he doesn't even like. But with different career things that I want, and I know that, I don't know how to say this without sounding snobbish, but like, I know that God's given me leadership abilities. That's something, a gift that he's given me that's I'm going to do different leadership roles. That can mean a lot of different things. But in the healthcare field that I'm in, further down the road, that will likely require a master's. So my other thought was I don't have a family yet right now. So it's kind of a good time to get that started and on its way and out of the way. But it also, like, I don't know, I like the goals that I have look like very busy jobs. So when you guys talk about, making time for family and whatnot, it's hard for me to, I don't know, just like thinking about the future and God willing, having a family in the future and stuff. Like, I think it's going to be, I'm like stuttering because I feel so like convicted over it, but it's going to be something that I'm going to have to be super intentional about as I go into these things, and making sure that I'm, taking Sabbath and not multitasking constantly, and able to separate work from home. On that same page that you mentioned, Josh, about that you just did a few lines up, I actually underlined I see a man who's emotionally unhealthy and spiritually shallow. So that's something that I think stands out to me, where, even if at work, having a lot to do or doing a lot of things or having responsibility, making sure that there's still that emotional health. Like I said, taking Sabbath, being choosy about extracurricular things, and making sure that I'm still making a lot of time or like daily time for devotions and time with God. And I think that's going to be a big part of kind of keeping that not shallow. I don't know. What I mean? But, yeah. I just keep laughing, and I feel like my face is red because I'm like, wow.
Conviction. Is that what this feels like?
But then on the flip side, like just moving here, I don't have a lot of those like social obligations. I don't know if that's the word. It's never like, I love filling my calendar with seeing friends and doing things. And if I have time available and work needs me, great, I'll be there. And that's just going to be something that you have to look back and kind of set boundaries for myself. And, you know, in order to be present while I am at work, having boundaries, and then being present while I'm at home, or, you know, doing things with Gathering 208 or with friends, setting boundaries like that. So,
Yeah.
You know, one of the this whole book has got a key verse that that John Mark Comer actually, you know, he mentions it in the prologue, or in the forward, the prologue, but then he's got it in the very front of the book in just big letters. It's an entire full page right before the forward, and it's from Matthew chapter 11 verses 28 through 30. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And he underlines rest. "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy," circles easy, "and my burden is light." And you get the sense really early on that he wants to point out that there's a fundamental break in our mindset as a Western culture and as Americans. And I can't speak to other cultural mindsets because I don't know them, but I know in our American culture, like, busyness is, like we talked about, kind of a badge of honor. But there's this fundamental break, and it just incongruity between that busyness mindset that we find ourselves embracing so quickly, and the life that God has for us, the life that Jesus is calling us to. And I know for me, having been in ministry for about 10 years now, I have often felt that busyness is akin to holiness, and like a busy pastor is a faithful pastor, and I think that ties so closely to almost like a works oriented salvation, almost like you've got to maybe, and I would never, you know, the works oriented salvation, this idea that somehow we can earn or have to earn our saving grace with Jesus. But almost in ministry, it can almost be like it's a works oriented call, where if you're not being productive, and if you're not staying busy, then maybe you're not really called. And it's just you can get you into this really unhealthy cycle.
Well, and I think it's another thing in our culture, or even things we were told when we first got married, is, oh, the first year of marriage is hard. The first year of ministry is hard. The first year as parents is hard. And people are always emphasizing that life is hard, get used to it. And I think that's a line from, like, Boy Meets World, like, hey, little bro, life sucks, get a helmet. Yeah. And, you know, you hear that constantly, but then in this book, I love this part where it says, Jesus invites us all to take up the easy yoke. He has this on offer for us all, an easy way to shoulder the weight of life and his, what's that word? I don't know. Love, joy, and peace. And Eugene Peterson translated that line as to live freely and lightly. And that's something, you don't hear that very often unless you're listening to like some self-help guru or like a yoga instructor. Like this guy said, like your yogi podcast. And it was,
there is almost this fear as kind of, you know, Western Christians or Americans to and maybe it's a little bit of a Midwest mindset too, of this idea of that as like the idea of being light or not being in a hurry is like frou-frou, new age, weak. You know, there's almost this idea of like
man up, dude.
Yeah, if you had a moment to take your breath, you are obviously weak in some way. It's
hard to resign yourself to that fact. Just yeah.
That is too much introspection to do live.
But I'd like to see it. No, I'm kidding.
Oh no, what was, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I've read that verse, I've heard it, I've seen it hundreds of times probably, but I feel like every time I hear it or I read it, it's usually when I need it, but that's probably because that's always, but it always like just kind of hits me in the soul, like, wow, rest and an easy yoke of light burden, like
What's that?
yeah, it like seems like this far off dream that's like not attainable. So just to kind of start getting into how it is attainable and how we can get that way is intriguing.
Yeah. Well, he here he talks about, it's like, do you feel weary? Right. What about, do you feel burdened? And this is on page 10. Like, does anyone feel a bone deep tiredness, not just in your mind or body, but in your soul? And that is such a real thing of when that tiredness, it's like, are you people sometimes, and I remember we'd have this conversation because I just sit on the couch and just be wiped. And she goes, are you like tired? It's like, well, I'm not sleepy. Are you? And I'm not even really emotionally drained. Are you? Mentally, I'm fine. Like all those, they're all kind of functioning, but there is a weariness that is deeper. That's kind of just cracking the foundations on the spiritual and emotional and physical realms. The emotional, mental, and physical realms, because there's this spiritual weariness there. And that's not a fun place to live. And he talks about talking with a mega church pastor guy that I don't know if they were friends or if they just gotten connected, and who had been preaching. He had also preached. He was preaching like 6 times a Sunday, which I've preached 3 times on a Sunday, and that's pretty wiping. I can't imagine preaching 6 times on a Sunday. And he goes, so how do you do it? How do you maintain this? And it's like, well, it's just like running a marathon every week. You're like, oh, but marathons are hard. And he talks about how, so he took up running, and the pastor that he had talked to a couple years later had moral failure. And ended up losing his church and causing a lot of damage. And I think that's running at a pace where we are taxing our soul into the ground. Something will break. At some point, something will break. And you can have, your closeness with Jesus and your closeness with your family and counseling and accountability and all those things will help allow you to run that at that pace longer, but eventually something will break. Yeah, go for it.
Oh, I just, when the author takes this break, he steps back from his megachurch. He doesn't resign, but he tells his leadership team, I just want to focus on one church at a time instead of all these campuses, all these services. And when he finally pulled everything back, he just took a breath. He says, I started therapy, one word, wow. Turns out I needed a lot of it. I focus on emotional health. I work fewer hours. I date my wife. I play Star Wars Legos with my kids. That's just thinking about these things that you're like, maybe you do them anyway. Amongst all the other busyness, you feel like you have to sneak these things in, but actually taking that moment to enjoy it and actually take a moment to talk to someone and be able to unload how you're actually feeling. Like talking to a therapist, gosh, that's freeing. Like finally getting to speak to someone who's be completely objective about your situation and what you're going through. Like that is something I would recommend to anybody if you're able to. And, I know in ministry, a lot of pastors, regularly see a therapist, not even always a Christian therapist. Sometimes you just need someone who is outside of it all that can give you, clear direction, not lead you down a different kind of path or anything. But I just liked that was included in this.
Yeah. There's been a long stigma against any kind of mental health care for a long time. And it's encouraging, I think, to see some of that stigma start to start to dissipate, people are more willing to talk about those kinds of issues. I mean, not just severe issues like depression and anxiety and those kinds of things, but even just kind of keeping an even keel. And I'm thinking this busyness, even before COVID hit, and even before people kind of realized that they could take a step back, or in some cases they felt like they had to produce more because they're stuck at home. There, and maybe it's just my phase of life or where I've been, but it seems like books on busyness have been kind of crossing my path more and more. There's a book. I mean, the book's been out for 40 years, I think, but Richard Foster's Celebration of Discipline talks about not necessarily busyness in particular, but taking those moments to practice spiritual disciplines. There's a book that came out that Kellen and I read together at the beginning of the year called and now I'm going to completely forget. It's an ebook but it's a Dallas Willard book about basically finding our satisfaction in God. There's another book called by I think it's John Tyson called The Burden is Light.
Yeah, it's over there.
Yeah, that one's over there. And that one's all about not being driven by accolades or kind of discovering some of those things that drive us. And it's based on the same key verse of, the burden is light, the yoke is easy. And so it feels like there's this kind of cultural consciousness that something's got to give. And then you throw, Life Without Lack by Dallas Willard is another phenomenal book. And actually it was some of the thinking behind John Comer's book was that book. Mm-hmm. And Life Without Lack is a fantastic book. It's pretty deep. And I think John Comer, he was trying to make it maybe a little bit more digestible for kind of your everyday reading. But there's this cultural moment of feeling that we have got to figure the whole busyness and the whole hurried thing out. And he talks about that word hurry, right? Because at the very beginning in the foreword, and that's the foreword was actually written by John Ortberg. He wrote, "Hurry involves excessive haste or a state of urgency. It is associated with words such as hurl, hurtle, hurly-burly," which I'd never heard before, meaning uproar.
Sounds British.
And hurricane, right? He defined it as a state of frantic effort one falls into in response to inadequacy, fear, and guilt. The simple essence of hurry is too much to do. That line, hurry is a response to inadequacy, fear, and guilt. I don't know about you two, but that strikes really at the heart of a lot of ways I functioned is, for me, a lot of feelings of inadequacy. Like if I don't hurry and if I don't do a lot, if I don't produce a lot, if I'm not seen to be working, I'm going to be found wanting, right? It's, what's the movie now where they, you have been weighed, you have been measured, Knight's Tale, right? And there's the antagonistic knight. It's with Heath Ledger, and the antagonistic knight, and they finally unhorse him. You need to watch it. Come over and watch it later. Another day. No.
Probably.
I mean,
kind of.
A little bit. I don't know. It's good.
It's good.
But anyways, there's they knock him on his butt, right? And they stand over him and he goes, "You have been weighed, you have been measured, and you have been found wanting." And I've always had this fear that that's going to be me. Like life is going to knock me on my butt because I didn't work hard enough. I didn't put in the hours. I didn't put in the reps. And someone's just going to laugh at me and go, "Yeah, you didn't have what it takes." And that is such a deeply ingrained thing in who I am, that realizing that that's there has been huge in helping, kind of move forward with life.
in juxtaposition there for me, I think the guilt is what kind of drives me when I feel that need to hustle. Is you're not, a Pinterest mom or an Instagram mom, and you need to do more and be more for your kids. You need to do more to support your husband and all of his endeavors. And even taking that time to focus on what about me? Like, I feel guilty even thinking that most of the time, because like in my mind, my job is to do this and this and this and this. And so anything else aside from that is just complete guilt.
Well, and that's like, I even think back to some of the conversation we had where you were having really bad nerve pain and you kind of have some ongoing medical issues with nerve pain. And your doctor told you that you needed to get massages somewhat regularly there for a while. And I remember the conversations we were having about how you just felt guilty about that because it was a money resource. It was a time resource. It meant I couldn't be working and had to be help you and, or help, not help you, but watch the kids. And, I don't know. So does one of those three emotions resonate with you, Julie? The inadequacy, the fear, the guilt?
Yeah, definitely for me, it's that inadequacy piece. I think you and I have a lot in common, which is obvious when we've met on things. Like, we'll keep going. And Erica's like, are we done? Like,
no,
45 minutes. So
we have not fixed all the problems yet.
Right. We haven't everything mapped out.
Boy.
No. But definitely that inadequacy piece. And I think that's, just brings back to kind of that prayer and thought that I had yesterday of just like, that is not, of God. Those thoughts aren't, and just the wrong focus. But like you said, recognizing that is huge. But now there's going to have to be some action steps, because then there's also knowing and then ignoring it, or, just like, I know that's my problem and moving on. So, well, we'll see how this goes.
I'll be watching you guys.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey, for those of you hanging out with us, let us know if one of those three emotions is what kind of puts you into a state of hurry. If it's inadequacy, if it's fear, if it's guilt, if it's a combination of things, or if there's a different emotion, it's not one of those three that you just go, man, I think that's the root of why I find myself in a hurry sometimes and kind of frantic. Love to hear from you on what your experience has been with that. So were you gonna say something, Julie?
Yeah, I was gonna be bossy.
Go for it. Be bossy.
I was gonna say, do we want to talk about what this book club will look like podcast?
Yeah.
Or
absolutely. We should do that.
Here. You mentioned we'll read 50 pages a month. So is that going to be me reading for the podcast every 4 weeks to everybody listening to the audiobook?
The Julie audio version of the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
We'll make it happen.
I love it. So here's
with the Minnesotan accent. It would be
just
great.
put it on thick. So here's what I'm thinking. Part 1 goes from page, if I remember correctly, page 17 through about page 57. So that's going to be our first month of reading. So, and we'll put a post up on social media as well, so people can know. We are reading from the hardcover version because it was what was cheapest on Amazon, other than the Kindle version. And you can get this on Amazon, and it's John Mark Comer's The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. So next month, so the first Wednesday of the month, we'll have a bunch of us on the podcast, and there could be 2 or 3 of us. There might be maybe even up to 6. We'll see.
Might be the bottom of the barrel again.
That's right. And we're going to read part 1 for next month. So if you can get a copy of this, actually Amazon was doing next day
Like a
delivery.
day, yeah.
Next day delivery in our area. So you might in other areas, you might be able to get it in 2-day delivery, but it's an easy read. It's
Sad
really
news. It's not on Kindle it's not on Audible.
It's not on Audible. So we will need the Julie Audible version of this. But yeah, so we'll read part 1 for next week. And next month. Sorry. And part 1 is all about the problem and identifying the problem of hurry and, how it gets in the way of our spiritual life and, like what our history has been as a people with that. And just the idea that there is something wrong. There is something fundamentally broken as we embrace hurry as opposed to health. So yeah, what I'm thinking is we will have we'll have a group of people on. We'll talk about part 1. People who are watching online can be part of the conversation. They can comment, and maybe we'll figure out a way to have a place where people can submit comments or questions ahead of time.
Ooh.
Where they can either tag us or add us or
hello@gathering208
or email us. That's so old school. Like, embrace social, sweetie. Come on.
Email is easy.
Email is easier to track and keep straight. I know.
We'll work on that offline.
Yeah,
yes.
I don't know how to work the Twitters and the
oh my gosh,
the TikToks.
I thought you were in charge of our communications.
I am.
It's not your job because it's not mine.
You can see what a great job I'm doing. Apologies.
So I would encourage you, if you're watching this now, if you're watching this in the future, pick up a copy. It's a fantastic book. Even if you decide not to read it with us, go ahead and pick up your own copy to I'll
put a link
to read along. We'll put a link in the comments. And next month on the first Wednesday, we are going to talk about part 1 of the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And we'll have a full panel to chat with us as well. So
will we?
We will.
Sure.
All right. So that's a little bit shorter tonight. But that's all right because we're going to have a lot to cover next month. And the next week, actually, we're having a ladies' night panel, if I remember correctly. Did we decide what we're going to call that?
No.
Ladies' night?
It's in my meeting minutes. I just need to look back at it.
Oh, okay. But if you have any suggestions,
we will
leave those in the comments too.
The idea.
Next, Allison's wondering.
Wants to watch The Knight's Tale for next week.
Tale. I mean, you can watch that as homework for next week, and maybe if I get Julie to watch it before then, we can talk about it during ladies' night.
Oh man. So I believe next week it's going to be you and Julie and Kathy and Jordan, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to invite all the ladies of G.
So the ladies. Well, the ladies from our lead team.
Yeah.
So
keep you working. I forgot to tell you, boss.
Stop it.
Oh, okay. Well,
we'll figure it out.
There'll be quite a few people, but so yeah, they're taking over the podcast. Kellen and I are going to be behind the camera.
Making fun of us.
Maybe in the hot tub. Maybe we won't even be here and let them figure it out. So that'll be next week. Excited about that. And then the week after that, Julie and Kellen. I had a flashback to Watford with one of our core people was Kalen. But Kellen and Julie are going to be taking over the podcast as well. And they have all kinds of antics prepped. They've been whispering things in my presence, I think halfway to scare me and see what I'll let them say before I take it away and just go, no. Wow,
we had Julie 3 weeks in a row.
I know
I might not be on Girl Talk next week for everybody's sake.
We'll see.
So also
for Kellen and Julie's episode and bring your own Chipotle because we'll be having some.
I mean, we ate Chipotle before the podcast this week.
Chipotle has become a Wednesday night ritual now.
Like my body knows when it's Wednesday and it's like Chipotle.
Yes, the guy leaves the Chipotle by the door and we go get it. And although they forgot the fajita veggies tonight and I was sad.
Second week in a row.
I had them last week.
Oh, I didn't.
If we need pastors away, we will eat it on camera to enjoy.
Sure.
Don't worry.
Just get really close to the microphone and do a mukbang. That's what they do. That's what the youths do.
The who's?
I don't know that word. All right. So also some exciting news. We are going to be meeting in person this weekend for Gathering 208. We're going to be down at the District Coffee House downtown, corner of 10th and Main, at 6 p.m. Main.
Okay, cool.
6 in Main, 6 p.m. Sunday. Be there. We'll also be live streaming it, so you can check it out on Facebook and be part of that. And we're kind of soft launching church service in live, and we'll have masks available. There's not going to be kids ministry. There's going to be hygienically prepared activity bags for the kids, and it's a big room, so there's going to be plenty of space for people to kind of spread out.
And there's coffee. There's
also going to be coffee, and in my opinion, it is some of the best coffee in town. It's one of like top 2 roasters in town. So be there, don't miss it, or join us online, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. But any last words from you two before we sign off?
I miss Julie.
You guys see each other all the time. We left for a weekend, and you're like going through withdrawal just because. Oh my goodness.
Party.
Yeah, that'll have to happen. Thanks for putting up with us, everyone.
Hey, thanks for hanging out. Pick up a copy. We'll see you. We'll talk about it next month, and we'll see you hopefully Sunday or next week.
Goodbye.